Hi folks, this is Jake from Tier 3 Tactical. Today we're talking about an article I wrote called Training for a Gunfight, Military Analysis of 133 Firefights. As you might imagine, oftentimes military, police forces, and even civilians are often training for the wrong characteristics. They are training for the last war or what has been done in the past. In this article, we're going to look at some interesting research that breaks down exactly what kind of factors are present in a firefight, specifically in a military direct fire engagement. The researcher here broke it down into 22 specific factors. Let's get into them. We're going to be talking about a piece of research that was actually a master's thesis written by, at the time, Major Matthew Simon. It's called Engage, Destroy, Survive, Characteristics of a U.S. Army Pistol, Carbine, and Rifle Direct Fire Engagements in Modern Combat. And what he did is he went through and interviewed veterans from the Korean War, Vietnam, the Global War on Terror, both Iraq and Afghanistan, both in military occupational specialties that are support and infantry or special operations forces. So he had a full complement of data to go on and spoke to many different types of people that were experiencing combat in different theaters as well as in different military occupational specialties. And it was a very good breakdown. Here you can see the 22 characteristics that he used to analyze a firefight. Surprisingly, he found some pretty striking commonalities. The most common aspect of these engagements was the requirement to engage more than one target at a time. You can see from this chart with the combined engagement data that engaging multiple targets was pretty much universally high, around 50%, whether that's pistol, carbine, rifle, whatever. It's pretty high. The next highest was a close range engagement. Obviously, that was a pistol one, would be a little bit higher because you're not going to be shooting at hundreds of yards there, but still very high for carbine and rifle. And the next other highest ones were engaging targets in limited visibility, whether that's night or low light or obscured with dust or smoke or something like that. So that was kind of interesting that those were some common things that occurred in all types of engagement. Remember, this is from Korea to Vietnam, where you had close-in jungle fighting, to Afghanistan, where you had wide-open desert fighting. So even these kind of disparate different areas of operation had very common requirements in terms of surviving and succeeding in a military direct fire engagement. Now, that previous statistic was looking at all military occupational specialties. So logistics people, intel, any kind of support to operations, and direct combat MOSs. But let's talk about special forces and infantry engagements. Perhaps these are a little bit different. Now, you can see from the chart I've thrown up now, we see close range engagements are even higher, actually, and we still continue to see engaging multiple targets is important, as well as limited visibility, and then using more than one round in the engagement or per target. So not just one or two shots, strings of fire is what we're talking about here. And you might be asking, while this might be interesting information, does this actually generalize to civilians, security forces, or police? And I would say yes. Having written another article called 11 Research-Based Concealed Carry Tips from Criminal Video Analysis, and that's linked in the article, so linked below in the description, I found a very similar pattern. In that article, I looked at 14 different traits when I analyzed dozens of videos and saw that there were some pretty striking commonalities. Now, these are closer range engagements because most of them were pistol, but we found that the average engagement range was 9 feet. So again, close range. 2 assailants was the most common, multiple targets. 73% of these scenarios required the good guy to shoot and move. Again, if you look at some of the data above, shooting from moving and shooting from non-traditional platforms was something they highlighted as well. And then overall, 83% of those engagements were successful if they did those kind of things. So I would say that while there a little bit of difference because we're not using rifles in the job of civilian is to survive, whereas the military is to win, right? So it's a little bit different job, but there are some pretty striking commonalities between that analysis and the one I did for self-defense. And that kind of leads me to the last piece of this video we're going to talk about is a more realistic shooting standard. Now, this is based more for civilians or police or people trying to defend themselves. Again, I'll link the Tier 3 Tactical Pistol Shooting Standards there, but you can go through that article, and I've got all the standards. It's a pretty simple course of fire, but it is very challenging. The time constraints are realistic, and the movement and the aggressiveness of the standards are realistic. You're going to need a little bit of space. You can't do this on just a regular flat range. I've had a couple readers try it. No one has yet hit the advanced standard on everything. Most of them are getting pretty close, which is pretty good. In the last group, we'll talk about this analysis might be somewhat useful for is military and tactical teams. I think one thing that, having been in the military and also in the police forces, we spend a lot of time training during the day, and it seems like a lot of these engagements are in low light or limited visibility conditions. And that's probably something those communities need to be training at more often, because your actions, the difficulty of communication and seeing what you're doing, that can really matter in those type of scenarios. So that's something that probably needs to change. Less daylight training and probably more nighttime training. And lastly, there's two books that I really recommend for folks that are self-defense minded or police or military. They're just very good books. One is Green Eyes, Black Rifles, and the other is Stay in the Fight, A Warrior's Guide to Combat Pistol. Both of them are by Kyle Lamb, who's a retired Delta guy who runs Viking Tactics. Very good, thorough books. A lot of pictures for those Marines watching this videos out there, but very good. And it breaks down the basics of actual self-defense requirements, how to get into the right position, how to shoot, how to train correctly, and just the basics of establishing a good shooting position and that kind of stuff. Definitely worth the buy. There's some links in the article below, so I recommend if you're looking for some books, that would be something else to get. And lastly, if you really want to get some solid training on the pistol or even the carbine now, get started shooting in USPSA or some other kind of practical shooting competition. The best way to get better at anything is to be around people that are better at it than you. And I think turn it into a competition. You're going to be safe and you'll probably learn a lot. If you like this article, feel free to subscribe to this channel. It helps us out a lot. And leave a comment if you have anything you'd like to ask or just want to tell anyone. Thanks.